Alright, welcome back. So, player pop-ups are pretty cool, but they are a little bit nerve-wracking to handle during your cast. So, I recommend using that one only if you're like really feeling comfortable, and especially if you're like feeling comfortable doing things on your computer while you are talking about other things. You kind of need to split your brain here a little bit and talking about the draft while you are actually putting in information into Soothsayer at the same time. So let's first have a look about how this actually works and how we can implement it. So we go to our game scene over here. It's currently showing some game stuff. I mean, this is just my heroes game, but there usually would be like some action happening here. And what you can do is you can add a web source here, browser source, sorry, and let's call it player popup. It's a local file and it's named playerpopups.html in your Soothsayer source folder. 1920 times 1080, the canvas resolution, and the rest as usual. And you see absolutely nothing. And that's totally fine. Just lock it. And now let's go to Soothsayer and go to Team. And usually I think the default is 30 seconds. I set it down to 10 seconds so that you can see a little bit quicker what's happening here. So what you have here is, let me make this larger. What you have here is down here you have all the player names, which are like the first 5 players on the roster. So here we have a list of all the players of each roster, and all of these names you can select here. Alright, there's a drop-down menu, and you like if Asterix, for example, is not playing because it's that person is being replaced by, I don't know, Arthur. I don't know if that is on the other team or not, but might be that Arthur is playing instead of Asterix, right? Then you would go here into the drop-down menu and select the other player. But the more important part is that you can select the hero which they have drafted in the draft. So let's say they are playing Blaze, Deathwing, Anduin, Alarak, and Malthael, for whatever reason. The other team is playing Abathur, Genji, Garrosh, Greymane, and Anna. Okay, so now you have put in all this information, and now if you hit update and then display pop-ups, see what happens here on the canvas in OBS. Oh, I'm on the wrong theme. Well, it wouldn't look like that. Let me quickly check that. I'm on the wrong theme. Okay, here we go. Let's have a look at this again. Display pop-ups. Alright, so here see now there is Asterix on the Blaze, Eloido on Deathwing, and so on, and it will show on the other side too. So maybe I actually bring this back up to 30 seconds. Okay. Alright, so now it's showing for 30 seconds. So you have Asterix on Blaze, Eloido on Deathwing, Snow Cheater on Endrin, Blanchard on Alarak, and Denominator on Malthael. And in the red team we have Captain Skippy on Abathur, Leroy Jenkins on Genji, Killer Cook on Garrosh, Gucci on Greymane, and Billy Bob Joe playing Piana. Alright, so you can do it like this, and your viewers can also see who is playing what at the beginning of a game. I think it's pretty cool. It's a pretty neat thing. There are some options here. You can display them all together, or you can display them one at a time. And this is the total time it takes to display all of them. Oh, sorry, I did not hit display pop-ups. Alright, and see here is like one popping up one after the other. You can do it like that. And we'll do the blue team first, and then afterwards the red team. So after Denominator on Malthael, we have Captain Skippy on the Abathur, and so on and so forth. Now you can also have one at a time blue, and then after After that is done, you can change that to one at a time on red and hit display pop-ups again if you want to have a pause in between, if you want to determine that yourself. But you can also go and just display them all together like this. It's also cool. But we probably want to put it then on a full minute here, that you have enough time to actually go through them all. Honestly, I prefer all blue and then red. And I think that's the best way to do it. When you have you go onto the left side with your camera and you just zoom in on these guys and you say all their names. When you go to the red side, zoom in on these guys, say all their names. Most casters are doing it like that, I think. Okay. So we added the source. I explained to you how this operates. So now is the question: how do you actually do this during the cast, right? So there's a couple of different strategies you can follow, and they all involve multitasking, unfortunately. Either multitasking or being really quick. So how I do it often, but I think I should not do it because I'm bad at this. What I often do is, during the draft, I put in, so at the beginning of the draft, before we even get into the draft, I make sure that while we are in the lobby, that all the player names here are all the players who are actually playing, and all the player names here are all the players actually playing. So if there's any substitutions going on, I can either overwrite that, like this, right? Or if that person is on the roster, I can make sure that they are actually being in here. Alright, so that's the first thing I need to do. And that is before the draft even starts. So that's the easy part, because you don't really have to do anything while you are waiting in the lobby. So you can do this one easily most of the time. The next part is during the draft. So while the draft is happening, and bands are coming out, and then players start drafting their first heroes. Most of the time, players are not switching in the switching round at the end of a draft. Most of the time, people keep on the heroes they have picked in the beginning, right? Like 90% of the time. So what I do is, during the draft, while I try to talk about the draft, I already go in here and select the respective heroes for each player. So if the first pick of a blue team is Slow Cheater on Anduin, then I would go in here and I would type Anduin, or I would start typing Anduin. Let's maybe take another one. Let's say Slow Cheater picks Tyrande as a first pick. Then I would go in here. Why is this not working? And okay, usually this works. And I would search Tyrande, and I have that. Alright? So then I have that one locked in already. The draft continues. Red team picks two heroes. Maybe it's Leroy Jenkins on, I don't know, Vala. So I type Vala, or I start typing Vala. And maybe it's Gucci, the second pick on the red team, who plays Brightwing. So I start typing Brightwing until that's the only option left, and I hit enter. Right? So that's just a fairly quick way to do. It requires a little bit of multitasking during the draft, while you are trying to analyze the draft and talking about the draft. So if you're able to do that, that's one way to do it. The downside of this is, if there is actually swaps happening at the end of a draft, like when the draft is finished and there's like the swap round, you need to have eagle eyes on the draft to make sure that you do not miss any swaps. And if there are swaps happening, you need to go back into Soothsayer really quick and swap the player names out, right? So if Asterix and Blanchard have swapped heroes, I would not swap the heroes. I would actually just swap here Asterix and Blanchard. That's easier. It's quicker, right? And that is something you can do when during the loading screen. You can double check everything to see if all of this still matches up. And then you are set for the beginning of the game. This is actually a very stressful time. It's like the end of a draft up to the game loading and you hitting this display pop-ups button. There's a lot of things going on. You have to do. It's pretty stressful. So this is not for the faint of heart here, what we are doing with. But it can be done. A lot of people are doing it. So with some practice you can do it too. Alright, second strategy is you don't care about the player names at all, and during the draft you just put in the hero names here, right? So you know blue team has first pick, so you can already be in this field here, and you wait for the first pick to happen, and you don't care who picked it. So let's say blue team picked Johanna, right? So you just put in Johanna, hit enter, and you don't care who picked it. And then you keep doing this during the draft, and then in the loading screen, which is usually a little bit of downtime, you now just go and look at the loading screen and just match up the names with who is playing what. Alright? Something like that. And if you're quick enough, you can get this done before the loading screen is done. Also depends a little bit on like how slow your computer is, how slow the other people's computer is. If everyone has a super fast connection and a fast computer, the loading screen will be very short, and you will have trouble getting this done in time. But you can also start this already doing the swapping round, so there's like a little bit of time here and there. If you're like really quick on these things, you can also follow a third strategy where you just put in the player names before the draft. During the draft, you just concentrate on what's happening in the draft and you comment on that. And then during the loading screen, you like very quickly put in all the hero names here. You can use the tab key to be a little bit quicker. And now this was supposed to be URL, but instead we got TRL. So you have to be careful sometimes. And you just put in the heroes here. And if you're fast on your tab key and your keyboard, and you're not mistyping, you will get this done. You can even tab out of the hero. So if I hit tab here, it will select Alex Strasser. Alright? So that saves you even another keystroke. Yeah. So you can do it like that. And if you're fast enough, you can get this done during the loading screen as well. And that gives you like full attention to the draft, so you don't really have to multitask at all. You just have to be very quick during the loading screen and the first couple of seconds in the game. Alright, so that is how you can operate this thing on Soothsayer. I gave you a couple of different strategies you can use here. It requires some practice. Like the first couple of times you do this, you will most likely struggle. But it is after a couple of times doing this, it is something which can be done. All right, so that is the player pop-ups at game start, and let's go and move on to adding a ticker in the next episode.